meeting these lovely people this morning, and they just really love the Lord, and it just comes through, and they're so welcoming. They give me a big hug, and they're just lovely. So Phil is here from Gideons, and he's going to be telling us about that ministry and encouraging us. So can we give him a big round of applause, please? Thank you, Phil.
I've got a big voice, but I will use the microphone. I've got so many props here as well. I'm getting sorted.
Testing. There we go. We've got volume. It's always good.
Good morning. Now, I'm led to believe that somebody, as part of this church, might know Cliff Parry. Does anyone? Maybe not here. Julie and I worship at a church. The full name of our church is Singleton Deo Gloria Community Church Incorporated. We meet in Singleton, which is the southernmost suburb of Rockingham. We live in Lakelands, which is the northernmost suburb of Mandurah, so it's a 3-kilometre drive up the road to church. And we meet in the community hall, which when we first started meeting there, it really was a community hall, and they've done a redevelopment of the site, and now it feels like a bowling club rooms, and that's totally okay. And the bowling club is very welcoming, so Julie and I last year played barefoot bowls on a Friday night and joined in with the bowling club, and the bowling club were a bit suspicious about a church. They're actually so suspicious about a church that we said, can we please install a sound system that you can enjoy and use as well? And they said no. Okay. We would love to actually pay and install a sound system in your hall at no cost to you that you can use. No. We'd like to give you a gift. Sorry, what are you actually saying? Because what had happened, if we get politics happens in the world, and what had happened to the bowling club is the previous president had said, yes, 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 and then there was a change of committee. And anything that the previous president had said yes to was a bad idea. So we then had to educate the new committee that we weren't a threat, we weren't friends of the old president, but it gave some of our elders in our church an opportunity to love the bowling club people, and an opportunity for us to reassure the bowling club people that we weren't a threat, we didn't want to take over. If they needed us to be finished church by a certain time in summer so that they could use their club rooms, then we would. We would actually move our service time to accommodate them and all those things. So that's part of our story in our church. I think this must be on a 7-second flip.
Yeah, I don't know how to stop it.
That's okay.
I can go back to the start.
Yeah, we might get back to the start. Ooh, that's interesting. All right. So Julie and I do our Gideons work in our spare time as volunteers. And I work as a school teacher. Julie has been a stay-at-home mum for 27 years. And now we are in transition. The only child we have left at home has left home in the past and come back, and she's very much an independent adult. She lives at one end of the house and we live at the other end of the house, and we communicate like adults. So that's a bit of our story, gives you a bit of background, and I'm here to talk about the Gideons and then share with you some things that God has placed on my heart. So we'll go through with the 7 seconds and I'll talk to the slides. You think you fixed it? So the Gideons International Australia is part of the Gideons International, which is in 199 countries, territories, principalities all around the world. And we, as an international organisation, print Bibles in over 90 languages and have available through the Bible app, which is a mobile phone app, over 1,100 languages. And that's been very exciting because when we first had access to the Bible app, I skipped a few things, but that's all right. There was a Gideon in America, and we were just using the Bible app, and it was almost like a beta version, it was a trial version. And he was at a restaurant, and he met a lady from Ethiopia. So he went to the Bible app, and he went to Ethiopia, and he said to her, okay, which language do you speak? And she chose her language. And it happened to be one of the languages that we have a spoken word accessible. So she pressed her language and heard the Bible being read in her language, and I think everybody in the restaurant heard her excitement because she's in America and she's hearing her language and she's hearing the Bible being read. So it's exciting that we have the Bibles available. You're probably watching the screen. The figures are, in Australia, we have handed out 17 million free Bibles since 1956. And I know that because Prime Minister Scott Morrison, we always, if we get to a milestone, we attempt to give a free Bible to the Prime Minister. We have a few Prime Ministers and Governors General that have received free Bibles from the Gideon for our milestones. And in the last month, we were able to present Scott Morrison with the ceremonial 17 millionth Bible to mark 17 million Bibles in Australia. So that was pretty exciting. And it's, I've got the figures from America. It's actually about 1 million every 4 days around the world that the Gideons are giving them away. How do we give away that many Bibles? Churches pay for them. But the organisation that became the Gideons was the Christian Commercial Travellers Fellowship. And they started meeting in 1898 in a hotel in America. 2 men, the receptionist apologised profusely and said, "Men, we're full. If you don't mind sharing a room, that would help us out." And as they went up to the room, one said to the other, "Look, I'm a Christian. I'm in the habit of doing a Bible study in the evening. Do you mind?" And the other said, "No, I'm a Christian as well. And let's do the Bible study together." So those 2 men then joined up with a 3rd man, and they became what we now call the Gideons. And 10 years after, they started encouraging each other, and the language that they used is very quaint. One of the objectives of the Christian Commercial Travellers Fellowship was to protect travelling men from the perils of the road, loose women and spirituous liquor. And it was a genuine threat because they're staying in hotels away from home. And it was genuinely a Christian fellowship for accountability for the travelling businessmen. 10 years later, one of the churches said, "You guys are in hotels, you guys are visiting hotels all the time. Can we pay for Bibles? And can you leave them in the hotels that you go to?" So we've always had a partnership between churches and the Gideons and placing Bibles. So that's a bit of our history, and we're still doing it now. We'll keep racing through the slides because there's information about where we hand Bibles at, not just hotels anymore. So feel free. We've got the hotels, we've got hospitals and aged care, police and emergency services personnel, armed forces, prisons. There's some exciting stories about prisons. I'll share one that I heard last night. Was his name Yancey Blue? Yes. Yancey Blue. There's some Gideons in America that have a code word, and they will text each other, "Yancey Blue!" I think that's a bit of a weird code word. 2 of them were in a prison, and the guard said, "You can go into the high security area. There is 5 scumbags." He wasn't very polite. There was 5 prisoners in high security. He said, "You've got 5 minutes with those guys. Only. 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes, no more, no less. 5 minutes." 2 Gideons went in. Bob, who actually became a pastor later on, went in, now on the concrete floor, and started praying. I can't remember the other guy's name. Anyway, they had 4 Bibles with them, and there was 5 prisoners. The first minute, the prisoners called the 2 Gideons every word in the dictionary, which is a lovely way of putting it. They called them everything. And the Gideon looked at his watch and said, "Okay, you've been cursing us for 1 minute. You can curse us for another minute. We've only got 5 minutes, and then we've got to be able to speak to you for 3 minutes." And then we're quiet. And the Gideon pulled out his Bible and said, "Do you know that God loves you?" And he read John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him shall have eternal life." prisoners all gladly accepted a Bible each, except for the fifth one. And as they were leaving, Yancey Bloom said, "My name is Yancey Bloom. Don't forget, I want a Bible too." And the guard opened the door and was about to close the door. And one of the Gideons said, "Yancey, you're going to have your Bible before tonight." And the Gideons got him his Bible that night. Now, we found out later that the Gideons met a lady that knew Yancey's mother. And part of the reason that Yancey was in jail was that he wasn't very nice to his mother. He actually beat his mother up, amongst other crimes that put him into jail. And his mother said he came out of prison a different man. And that's very exciting. So the code word is if the Gideons in that area have somebody who has a life changed because of Jesus, not because of the Gideons, but because of Jesus, they text each other the code word, "Yancey Bloom, another one." And that's very exciting. And they've actually, the guy telling us the story said, "I've got a message from Bahrain at 3 in the morning, America time. Yancey Bloom, another one." But it's exciting. So there's prisons, college and university students, I'll talk more about that, but we can keep going. School children all around the world, I'll talk more about that, but we can keep going. We are able to hand out these Bibles because churches and Christians and other people who aren't Christians but just like what we do actually pay for the Bibles that we give away. We pay for a number of them ourselves, but the churches pay for them, and me. Next, we see families changed. Wow. I need to look at my watch because I can just tell story after story. Mexico. Les was there. A schoolgirl received a scripture from school, went home. Her dad saw the Bible and said, "You don't want to read that book. I'm taking it off you." And he put it in his work clothes to go to work. He was an underground miner. He went to work with the Bible in his pocket. There was a cave-in. He didn't get out. But when they recovered the body of he and his shift, all of the men on that shift had signed the back page to say that they had accepted Jesus Christ as their Lord and Saviour. That entire shift died on that shift. They had to be recovered. It wasn't a rescue, it was recovery. And Dad left a note saying, "My daughter, this is a good book. Read it." I can tell story after story after story. I keep going. When we go overseas, particularly Latin America, we hand out free Bibles with the local members. Of the 199 countries around the world, 12 of them can buy all the scriptures that they need for their country and surplus. The remainders of the country rely on the generosity of Christians in places like Sweden, Australia, America, South Africa, Norway, to pay for the scriptures that they're going to hand out for free. And when the Gideons go to Latin America, they will run out of Bibles. And there's been situations where university students have been going through the empty boxes that Gideons have at the gate to look for a Bible. And then we come to Australia or the USA, and about 80% of the students say, "No thanks," or worse, to the Gideons that are handing out Bibles at the gates of the universities with their wives. So when we go to Ghana, Botswana, Ecuador, Brazil, one of our friends has a photo of children that were too young to receive the Bible, with their hands poking out under the school gate saying, "We want one too. Are you coming back?" And it's just amazing. So that's I've got no idea what country that is, but that is a Gideon's vehicle loaded with Bibles. We saw, was it Malaysia or Hong Kong? They had photos of Gideons with a trolley taking Bibles to go to a ferry to go to an island and put Bibles in the hotels on that island. Malaysia or Hong Kong, somewhere in Asia, around water. Next slide. So we're going to come locally. We've just done a bit of a tour of the world. I shared with our local group in Mandurah. We had, I called it 5 states of activity. We had universities in Bunbury, Bundaberg, Melbourne, Adelaide, Sydney, where we had permission to hand out free Bibles either on the campus or at the gates of the university. So this is Sydney. We have a God-given vision, because it's too big for us, that Sydney will take 500,000 scriptures, 500,000 scriptures into Sydney starting last year. We called it Sydney for Eternity. We were focusing on Western Sydney, and it really shook us up, because the average Gideon is a 63-year-old man that goes to a Baptist church and has farming as his occupation and happens to be having a white skin as well. So that's the average profile of a Gideon. 63 years old, white Baptist farmer. Now, in Sydney, in the area called the Hills, just sort of off the Blue Mountains, we have the white Christians that have been Gideons for 40 or more years. And then we have Hills 2. And Hills 2 is the Indian subcontinent Gideons. And Hills 2 is praying for the Southeast Asian Gideons, that they believe that will become part of the Hills Gideons ministry. And they work together and they cooperate. But they do things slightly different to each other, but they're all Gideons. Now, yesterday we were blessed. We had our state conference, and we had Charles came over from Essendon in Victoria, and Max and Gail came across from Bundaberg in Queensland to share with us and be with us and support us as we had our state conference. Max and I had a wonderful experience several years ago in Cairns, where Max, myself and Graham hopped in a car, drove up to Port Macquarie, Douglas, north of Cairns, and we had driver, deliverer and prayer partner, 3 of us. And for all of the delivery points, I was the jockey that was doing the delivery. Max, I think, did the bulk of the driving. Graham and I would hop out and offer the Bibles, except when we got to a place called the Pink Flamingo. Now, at this point, I'd been a Gideon for a short period of time. Max and Graham had actually both served on our national committee in the past, so they were senior Gideons. And I said, guys, I'll pray for you with this one, I'm not going in. So they went in with the Bible for the hotel and a little Bible for the lady if she wanted one, and offered her a scripture. I'm sitting in the car praying, and she politely said, no thank you, we're not that sort of establishment. Pink Flamingo, probably exactly what you're imagining. And they said no thank you. But the caravan park said, look, at a little library, we'll take some. And we had one that we visited that had just been taken over by new owners. They said, look, we're really, really embarrassed. We've got 32 rooms and we know we've got 4 Bibles and we're really sorry. I said, if people take a Bible from your hotel, we don't want it, we'll replace them free of charge. Oh, cool. Can we have 28? So we'll have to take 30 because somebody might take another one, you've got spares. So we had lots of exciting stories. So there's been a huge amount in Sydney. That's part of the 500,000 that we are trusting God that He was the one who gave us that figure, because the biggest that we've done before was 90-something thousand in Melbourne. And for God to say 500,000 in Sydney just blows our mind. And we've got the money to do it, which is amazing. We have a surplus every year, so we send our surplus money overseas for overseas Bibles. We actually start each year with a nil balance. We have a reserve that we have to have, but the money that we receive each year for scriptures is what we spend each year in scriptures in Australia, and when we pay for the Australian scriptures, we just send them to international headquarters for other countries. Okay. Now, a lot of people know the Gideons for handing out Bibles, but the Gideons is not just handing out Bibles. In fact, we didn't hand out any Bibles for the first 10 years, as I said. The whole purpose of the Gideons ministry is to introduce men, women, boys and girls to the Lord Jesus Christ. And we happen to do that through handing out scriptures. But we also do it through personal testimony, through us telling our stories. And we also tell our stories to each other to encourage each other. Now I'm going to ask Julie, if you don't mind, if you can share a couple of stories from as we've worked. These are all ones that we've done together. So I'll ask you to share a few stories.
Yeah, we used to live in Kalgoorlie. For anybody who knows about 600-700 kilometres out inland. And the local high school had always said to us, no, don't want the Gideons in here. And this particular year, they said, all right, you can stand at the bus stop. Now, the bus stop, as you can imagine, is a fairly busy place. So we're standing there with literally Bibles, the school testaments, which are red ones, sitting on your arm, and you're flicking them out like that. So you've really got no time to talk to the students, which is disappointing, but you've just got to pray that every Bible will be out somewhere. This young girl came back and said to me, "Do we have to pay for these?" "No, they're free." She looked at me as if to say, "Really? Why would you give something out like this? Why would you give away anything free?" And I said, "Well, that's about you read it and figure out why." And she looked at me and said, "Okay, I'll do that." Now, I don't know what happened. I'm trusting that God has used that Bible for that girl. We also had another student come back and say, "Hey, this looks all right. Can I get one for the bus driver?" So, yep, sure, no worries. So the bus driver got one. And just more recently, we did some Bible distributions into medical waiting rooms. And there was one medical waiting room we went into in Rockingham. And I walked in there and up to this lady and explained who I was and where I was from. And she said, "Oh, I can't make that decision. You have to ask this lady over here." And she kept watching me. So I moved over to the other lady and asked her, and she said, "Oh yes, we'll take one for the waiting room." And then I offered her a small testament of her own, and she said, "Oh no, I don't want one." Okay, so our thing is to step back. We never pressure anybody. We just step back and pray. And this other lady had been watching me the whole time, and I just felt God saying to me, offer her testament. And so I moved across and said, "Would you like this testament?" And she goes, "Thank you so much. I think that's what you're going to ask me." So we never know what people's hearts are. And then just as we were finishing up, you can imagine we're in and out of the car all day, and we get to the last place, and there's a place that's not even on our list in Golden Bay. And Phil and I looked at each other and went, "It doesn't look like there's anybody there." And then we thought, "Oh, the door is open. Okay. I suppose we should go." And I think we went in a little bit half-hearted. Walked in and said to this lady, she gave us a very warm welcome, and we told her what we were doing, who we were, where we were from. We'd like to offer a Bible for the waiting room and one for her personally. We had the most amazing reception from this lady. She said, "Oh yes, we'll have one for the waiting room." "Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I'm going to read this." And so we never know what God is going to do for us. We never know what people's hearts are. And this is part of the reason we do what we do. It's to reach people. Because the people you least expect are the people that actually want these scriptures. They want the Word of God. They're hungry for the Word of God.
Thank you. Julie and I went back to Kalgoorlie in July last year with the specific intention of helping hand out Bibles to the hotels. We've got a small number of members in Kalgoorlie. One at the moment is very frail. One I just found out last week has a major medical condition, and he's not an old man. It's impacting on his business. And they haven't been able to, some of them work 16-hour days in their own businesses, so they just don't have the time to go and visit the hotel. So a couple of us from Perth, and Julie and another guy, and two other guys, Julie and myself, we met in Kalgoorlie, and we met Ken, who has been a member of the Gideons for over 35 years. Ken had just got out of hospital, and his time in hospital was so bad, Julie and I were like, we were at a funeral last year for one of the Kalgoorlie Gideons. Is this going to be a funeral for Ken as well? But Ken was out of hospital, and we went round to Ken's place, and Ken wasn't up to helping us physically going around the hotels. But we just stood around with Ken's place. Ken was sitting down and we prayed. And somebody, and I think it was Ken, said, you know what? I think that the hotels in Kalgoorlie will take 1,000 Bibles. And my immediate reaction was a bit like Sarah and Abraham when God said you're going to have a child. Ha ha ha. And that's why Isaac is called Isaac, because Sarah and Abraham laughed when God said you're going to have a baby and they're 90 years old. You're going to have a baby. You're going to hand out 1,000 Bibles in Kalgoorlie. I don't think there's 1,000 hotel rooms. The final figure was 997. And after working all day Friday, going into hotel receptions, meeting hotel management, talking to people in hotels, Roger, who was driving his car, and I was with him, he saw something and he thought, Phil is exhausted. Because I said, look, we're at this hotel here. We had a fabulous reception. We went in and the guy said, I'm Romeo and I love your Bibles. We've got Diggers and Dealers conference coming up and we're going to stock take of rooms and we want rooms. We've got this many rooms, we've got this many Bibles, we'll replace them all. Thank you very much. I'm just glad you're here because you're on my list. Okay, Romeo, that's great. Yep, we'll arrange for you to get the Bibles. And I looked at the next place and looked at the car and I looked at Roger and I said, I'm walking there. Because for me to get in and out of the car was harder for me to walk up the road to the next place. Phil's exhausted. Went to the next place and said, look, the boss isn't here, come back later. We came back 2, 3 more times, even the next morning, and then she said, thank you so much, can I have 20 please? Absolutely, here you go. We went from there back to where Julie was staying, and we had one more place on our list. And we drove up, and it had a for sale sign out the front, and it looked deserted. And we drove up, and we sat in the car, and we just prayed, okay, God, we're here. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're here. We'll knock on the door. We'll see what happens. We were both exhausted. Went and knocked on the door. Bed and breakfast. The lady said, open the door. I've got 6 rooms. Can I have 6? And yes, I'll take that. I'm arguing with somebody, and I'll read the Bible, and I'm sure I'll find the answer. Okay. So much for being exhausted and the place to close. God said, don't worry, keep going, persevere, persevere, persevere. You've got to keep going. We work together. I said, Roger and I are working together. Julie and I have been doing distributions together. Max and Graham and I worked together. Gold Coast last year. Does anyone know a major international event that happened on the Gold Coast last year? Well done. Commonwealth Games. Did you know that while the Commonwealth Games was on, there was 10,000 individual conversations between a team of 50 Gideons and people that they made eye contact with and offered a Bible to? So it's not like the industrial high school or a university where you fill your arm up and you're handing them out. Charles did 5,000 Bibles, 5,600 Bibles at a Latin American university with his team of small number, handful of Gideons. 5,600 little Bibles in one day at a university game. It's like, and he said that's industrial. It's industrial. Gold Coast, Commonwealth Games, 10,000 conversations. Sometimes the conversation was half an hour long. Would you like a free gift? Can I pray for you? Can I explain that in the front of this has got some answers to some questions that you might have. You might have anxiety, you might have anger, you might have homelessness, you might be struggling with addiction. In the back page, we've got what we call the GPS, God's Plan for Salvation. You can read through that, we can read through it together, we can pray through it. If you want to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Saviour, you can sign the back page, you can sign it now, you can take it away. If you want to become a Christian, if you want to learn more about Jesus, then we encourage you to get plugged into a local church, meet a pastor, meet Christians, be involved in fellowship. We are doing what God asks us to do. We're distributing His word. We don't convert. God works in people's hearts. We just do the introduction. Universities in Melbourne last week, people didn't even know what a New Testament was. You mean there's an Old Testament? What's this New Testament? That looks interesting, I'll read that. No idea, because we can't hand out Bibles in schools. We've got one place where there's 50 schools in that Gideon area. One school said yes on the last day of school. One school out of 50. 85 schools in that area, sorry, I get my figures confused. The state government in Victoria made a rule. There will be no religious literature distributed in any government school in Victoria, especially not Bibles. But that doesn't stop God from working. So we continue to work. So we used to hand out thousands of Bibles to school children. Now we hand out thousands of Bibles in one-on-one conversations. Where are we going to get more value? Handing a school child a Bible that they throw away? Or school children generally don't smoke them, but other people have smoked our Bibles. They look really good. We have one guy that he says, I was smoking Leviticus and I read the Gospel of John. And he became an outreach pastor. And his entire family became Christians. Smoking Leviticus and I read the Gospel of John. We've also had people who've got a bouncer. Rory is not a bouncer anymore. But when his friend gave him a Gideon Bible, he stuck it over his heart. Because his friend said, there's one of these in the War Museum with a bullet lodged in it. It saved the guy's life. War Memorial. Yeah, sorry. Rory's thinking, I'm a bouncer at a nightclub on the streets of Melbourne at night. Okay, that works for me. One night he started reading Revelation, because he always starts reading the back of the book. I missed the story yesterday. The guy was sharing with us and he said, I couldn't understand any of it. I found Revelation. I thought, oh, that's good. It might actually reveal to me what this is about. And that's when I had to leave the room. I had to find out from Julie the rest of his story. So we've got like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of lives changed because God has given the Gideons the resources for us to give away free Bibles. Not us. God. Obediently. But we do it as we encourage each other, we work together, and then we distribute the scriptures as part of 1/3 of the work that we do as Gideons. Because we also have the encouragement to pray daily and read our Bible daily. As members of Gideons, Julie and I do this together in the morning. We will read a portion of scripture and we will pray for the needs of the Australian Gideons and the needs of the international Gideons. This is our monthly prayer diary. Every day of the month we've got a particular thing to pray for that encourages us to pray. Next slide, thank you. This is our challenge of Gideons for this point in time. Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent, I may hear of you that you are standing firm in one spirit, worthy of the gospel of Christ. Now, Charles came to us from Victoria. Charles admitted to us that as a young Gideon, he was with an international team. And the guy from Ireland said, Charles, you swear a lot. And Charles went, I'm an Aussie vet. Maybe I don't need to swear as much as I do. But in my workplace, there's a lot of swearing, but I don't have to swear. So Charles was convicted by the encouragement of a fellow Gideon to live a life worthy of the gospel of Christ. What we are working on very much is we are striving side by side. We are working side by side. And this is part of our current vision as we go back to what God originally gave those three men, the encouragement to work together, the encouragement to share, to encourage each other, to have testimony of what God's doing in our lives for the faith of the gospel. Next slide, thank you. So this is part of the team in Sydney, praying before they go out, because it's not us, it's God. Next slide. It's not us, it's God. There's another passage that says we're not fighting against flesh and blood. I might have an opinion of Scott Morrison, I might have an opinion of Bill Shorten, I might have an opinion of any number of people. But the command from God is to love and to pray for those that are in authority. But the Holy Spirit convicts us of sin and righteousness and judgment. not me. Julie and I walked with a couple called Ryan and Nikki, and they were both intravenous drug users when we first met them. And they shared with us the challenge of giving up their Friday night routine. If you buy the kids pizza and Coca-Cola and tell them to leave you alone, and you buy a hit for yourself. We didn't judge them. We loved them. Nikki wanted me to judge Ryan one day because he'd bingled the car. He said, Phil, come to church. Ryan's bingled the car. You see that dent there? That's because he was perving at another woman. That's not okay for a married man. I said, Nikki, I can't say yes or no. That's between Ryan and God. And you guys can argue about it. It's not to me to judge or help you to condemn them. But their journey was amazing as they realised that the drugs weren't helpful for them. As they realised they were getting off the intravenous stuff, and then he got off the marijuana, and she eventually got off the marijuana, and God changed their lives. So exciting. This is Rose. This is Rose in Sydney. The great big smiling face is Lincoln, who is our National Executive Director, so that's a bad selfie or a good selfie. Rose said yes to the Bible because her father in Croatia had read a Bible and been cured of alcoholism. Now, I don't know what it's like to grow up as a child with an alcoholic parent, but from the kids that I've met, it's not easy. So she's thinking this Bible's got good news because it solved a problem that I had with my dad. I want to read it too. So she's actually got the Bible now, and she's got Lincoln's contact details because she wants to read the Bible and talk more about what the Bible means. Just before, actually, go back one slide. I'm going to, in a minute or so, to have some specific words of encouragement apart from the Gideons, as we work to be followers of Jesus in where we are. If you haven't received one of these brochures, then grab one from us. If you want to get involved in working with the Gideons, so for a person to be a Gideon, it's a men's association and our wives join us. So for a person to become a member of the Gideons, they have to be over 21. They have to be a born-again Christian that believes in the power and the truth of the Scriptures, and they have to be employed in a business or professional capacity. So that's our membership qualifications. Now, we are actually looking for men that meet that criteria in the Busselton area at the moment specifically, because we've got Lawrence, who's at Geograph Bay, and he's actually looking for men that can help him in this area do that work. And men that qualify and their wives can join up. So if that's you, or you've got a friend that fits that criteria, I'm more than happy to leave Lawrence's details and you can follow up. And if you want me to pass on your details to Lawrence, that's fine. So that's the Gideons. Now, if you don't qualify, then we have Friends of Gideons. And we make it possible for Friends of Gideons to learn about evangelism. A book called Share Jesus Without Fear, which if somebody signs up as a friend of Gideon's and subscribes with a monthly subscription, then you actually get the book Share Jesus Without Fear. We also run workshops, Share Jesus Without Fear. You also get a few of these. Is that olive green? It's green. To me it's green. You can buy these so that you can give them away. Even if you're not a Gideon, as a friend of Gideon's that subscribes as a friend of Gideon's, you can be involved in sharing God's word. The first testimony that we got from a friend of Gideon's, a lady had a telecom technician, Telstra technician, come to her house to fix her internet. And she offered him a green New Testament. And he said yes. And she was so excited, she contacted the Gideons International. I gave one away! So, there's things that we do as an association, but anybody can hand out Bibles. So we make it possible for more people to hand out Bibles. We also have greeting cards that we give away for free, so that's another way that people can actually help us pay for the Bibles that we give away. So we've got these really cool Australian greeting cards, and they come with two envelopes. One envelope is to put the card in to give it away, and the other envelope is to send to the National Office with the donation. And you can save them up, so you can set one big donation all at once. And if you go online or get a box of cards, and you can actually choose which cards that you want National Office to send you. They send them to you for free so that you can actually give more cards away and make more donations for the Gideons. I feel like saying, is there any questions now? Because that's the Gideons, that's what we do, that's what Julie and I do, that's what God called us into this ministry 10, 11 years ago. And God was persistent. I was actually meeting with the Gideons in Calgary every Saturday morning for prayer. And they gave me a membership form and they said, you should join. And I lost the first membership form. And they gave me another membership form and said, you should join. And I put it in my Bible, folded it in half. No worries. And they said, have you got that membership? I said, it's in my Bible. They gave me a third membership form and a pen and said, fill it out now. That was February 2010. And I had actually, before I was a member of Gideons, I'd been trained and approved for speaking in churches about the Gideons. And so you've got to fill out this form because you can't speak about the Gideons if you're not a Gideon. So I've been speaking in churches now for 9 years about the Gideons. And God has enabled us to travel to different parts of Australia, different parts of Western Australia, go to waiting rooms, go to hotels, have some fabulous Bible teaching as members of the Gideons. I've had incredible fellowship. I had the privilege of being part of the National Organising Committee of the Gideons for 3 years. And when you know that all that you have is God, the men that were part of the National Organising Committee of the Gideons, and I will never forget this, we said we need to pray. So we actually all got off our chairs, and because our national president at the time has got very bad knees, he can't kneel, we were either kneeling or face down, saying to God, we cannot fix this. We need to let you fix this. We've got a big problem, and we can't do it ourselves. That's powerful. We don't have to do that in Australia very often because there's so many things that we can fix ourselves. And God took us to a point where we were looking at the impossible. And we literally got on our faces and said, God, we're sorry. We should have come to you earlier. We need you to fix this problem. That is powerful. Okay. Let's go. We had a Bible teacher. He's an international missionary. He was discussing with his wife, where should I be a missionary? And his wife said, anywhere in the world. Don't choose a location because everywhere that we go, Romania, Vanuatu, India, everywhere we go, God uses you. So he's an itinerant missionary. He just travels the world. And we're privileged that he spoke to us and encouraged us based on 2 Timothy. And this is Paul's charge to Timothy. I charge you in the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who is to judge the living and the dead, not us. Jesus judges the living and the dead. And by his appearance in kingdom, preach the word. Be ready in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, and exhort with complete patience. That's a tough one. And teaching. For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off in myths. As for you, always be sober-minded, endure suffering, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. I've just had 4 days paddling a big whitewater raft down the Blackwood River with 34 Year 9 students. When we arrived at the first campsite, we had 34 individuals. And didn't we know it? We had 2 people from YWAM that were helping us. I have the privilege of being a teacher in a Christian school. And one of the YWAM missionaries said, this group is different to last year. They are catty and chatty. I thought, that's right, they are catty and chatty. Their favourite pastime was to roast each other. They enjoyed roasting each other. They loved it when I accidentally roasted one of them. Oh, get some cream for that burn. On Wednesday morning, we had struggled with them on Tuesday night, and we covenanted that at 6 o'clock in the morning we would gather and pray. On Wednesday morning we prayed, God, can you please reveal yourself in the majesty of nature on this river? Well, God revealed himself all right, but it wasn't what I wanted. Lunchtime, we're standing on the bank and I'm hearing this rumble, rumble, rumble. I said to my brother, is that thunder? He said, no, it's a truck. Okay, it's a truck. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Sounds like thunder. I'm happy to accept it's a truck. Rumble, rumble, rumble. We get back on the rafts. Overcast. Boom! That's not a truck. Paddling. Now, the good thing about the thunder was that the wind died down. We had been paddling into a stiff southerly. Man, it was hard work. And when you've got 8 chatty teenagers on the raft that don't necessarily all coordinate, you actually had to work hard to go forwards. So I've just spent 4 days with 34 chatty teenagers, and God showed up. It rained. It was beautiful. I love paddling in the rain. I love watching the rain hit the water. I love it, but usually I'm not myself. I'm not with 34 chatty teenagers. And then there was a lightning bolt. Far enough away that we were safe. Probably 5 miles away because woof, and then there was... I think this was hard work. But what happened when it rained? And when it was thunder, the kids were quiet and the kids worked. Because for the 34 individuals, all of a sudden, it was everybody working together. Because we'd said to them, we don't know whether we're going to get to camp at 7 p.m, at 10 p.m, at 3 p.m. It's over to you guys. Now, they made it to camp at 5 to 4. We've never got to camp at 5 to 4 with any other group. But they put their heads down and they just worked to encourage each other to paddle together in the rain, quietly, or encouraging each other with actually a genuine encouraging chant, no roasting, and God showed up. And what I wanted was a lovely day on the river with nature and sunshine. And God showed up and said, I'll give you exactly what your group needs. Because your group doesn't need a lovely day with sunshine. Your group needs trials and hardships that will actually bond them together to achieve what we want to achieve to get you there. God showed up. Next slide. 2 Timothy 2. Be strengthened by the grace that is in Christ Jesus. What you've heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, tell other people what you've heard. I've told you the good news. Tell other people. And then they'll be able to tell other people as well. Share in suffering as a good soldier of Christ. Not easy to be a Roman soldier. Part of the job is suffering. Share in the suffering as a good soldier. Don't get worried about things that aren't relevant. Focus on what your orders are. An athlete is not crowned if he breaks the rules. The hard-working farmer is the one that should get the first share of the crops. The Lord will give you understanding in everything. Next slide. This was our theme verse for our conference. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth. I'm going to finish with this verse. Has anybody ever had children or seen children at the age where they want everything to be exactly equal? Some translations say, rightly dividing the word of truth, sharing it equally, not getting distracted, not getting it wrong. We've got 4 girls, and we get accused of loving one differently or treating one differently or whatever. Now, when you've got kids of that age, different ages, 7 years gap can make a huge difference, and having older siblings and no siblings and all those things, we did treat them all differently. But we treated them all differently because the circumstances were different. When there's a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old in the house, it's hard to insulate a 6-year-old from swear words. But when the oldest child is 6, then there's not going to be anyone in the house saying, "Can I watch that M-rated movie?" Because 6-year-olds don't want to watch an M-rated movie, but the 14-year-olds wants to watch an M-rated movie. So we had rules about how we do this. So when I was growing up, my father used to threaten to get the measuring device that measured micrometers, thousandths of a metre, so that when he was sharing things out, there could be no arguments, so that he could actually share it out in a way that was fair. So he was rightly dividing so that everybody got the right share. When we are rightly handling the word of truth, we're not ripping anybody off. We're not shortchanging anybody. We're giving everybody the truth, the right amount of truth. Let me encourage you, you don't have to be a member of the Gideons, you don't have to be a friend of Gideons, but in your life, are you rightly handling God's truth? Are you encouraging each other in what we do as Christians together, as we fellowship, as we serve, as we pray for one another, as we love one another, as we encourage each other, and then we share with the community, with the people that God loves? Thank you so much. Thank you for all the blessings this morning as